G'day and welcome to the Campfire Project. Today, we usually start our panel discussions with all of us on screen with an introduction of each person. Today, we got into the conversation before it even started, and we just started chatting and away it went. So we decided to carry on with the panel discussion, and this is what follows. Today, I'm here, first of all, with Dr. Jerome Teelucksingh, who is a lecturer in the Department of History at the University of West Indies. He's also the man who brought together International Men's Day, which we touched on in our conversation today. But also Kenny Mammarella-D'Cruz, the Men Whisperer, who resides in the UK, and with Scott Carson, my co-host here on the Campfire Project. So welcome to the Campfire Project. Enjoy our panel discussion today.
I think, Alan, you were asking about, what defines a man and the features of manhood. And I think that is so critical right now in the 21st century and beyond, because what has traditionally been the features of manhood, some people see as toxic masculinity. So what others might see as quality defining features, some see as toxic. And what I am starting to realize, I don't know if it's in England or Australia, but in the Caribbean, boys are afraid to express their emotions. They are, especially anger. So boys have this anger pent up, and if they express it, the society comes down on them and says, that's toxic masculinity. You can't express anger. And it makes me want to believe that we have to be careful that we do not create feminized boys or boys who are not sure how to direct their anger and are afraid to show emotions because they might be classified and stereotyped and stigmatized as toxic. Sometimes a boy loses in a cricket game or football game in the Caribbean, and he doesn't want to yell or he doesn't want to curse. I know last time the issue of cursing came up, swearing, because that might be toxic. So I think that we need to also address that, the four of us. How could we put in jars or labels what is toxic and what is not toxic?
Yeah, okay.
I think
it's going to be an interesting conversation then.
Just keep it going. I just do an announcement after. Just keep this conversation going where it's at, because I think that right there is awesome. Is that all right? Can we do that? Yeah.
You do that.
Because that right there about having the aggression and showing the aggression, because last week I talked about, cutting out the swearing and bits and pieces, and I'm very strong on that with my son, like I really, because I think it's lazy English. Yeah. At the same time, when we came out of lockdown, Oscar and I went to go fishing, and we went to go down the pier, and there were so many people, we couldn't even get on the pier. You've got the road, two sides of the road. People were parked in the medium strip. It was disgusting, the energy of which just down the road, it was just so heavy. So I've turned around to Oscar. I said, right, okay, I can feel this. This is so uncomfortable. I want you to lose it. I want you to lose it properly. I want you to give me your best argument. You can swear as much as you like. Oh my God, did he give it to me? Dropping the F-bomb perfectly. I cannot believe it. And then for 5 minutes, he let go of all of it in the car in a safe environment with me. He let it all out. He was exhausted. I go, how does it feel, mate? He goes, good, Dad. Good. I said, excellent. Let's go get a pizza and sit on the hill and watch all the ants down on the beach. But that's what I feel is something so important for me. We need that place to have that anger and direct it properly.
That's it.
We teach our children, our boys, how to do that. My son
doesn't turn toxic.
Absolutely. My son, I gave him permission to break another boy's nose. I gave him permission. because he's getting bullied. Dad, I know I can, but it's not the tool I want to use. I'm like, oh my God, that is so beautiful. I said, okay, just know it's in your arsenal. Just know it's there. We gave him other tools on how to approach that. And I'm wondering whether or not, because I play fight with Oscar, and if you see us play fight, you may not think we're playing, but it's that opportunity to release that energy, because I think as men, we all have it.
To have the opportunity to, you've given Oscar the full scope of things he can do. As you were saying before, Jerome, that when you lock people down, the thing is, it's like a pressure cooker. It'll keep it down until the cap can't hold it anymore, and then it explodes. So to say to somebody, don't express your emotions, because we were told don't get angry when we were growing up, be seen but not heard, and all the rest of it. Of course, there were going to be people who become violent, because sooner or later you just can't hold it any longer. But when you give that safe place, because men's groups used to be, long time ago, you would sit down, you'd be able to express yourself. The older men knew that the younger men, that's what they were going through. They needed to let the steam off, or otherwise they wouldn't grow into being good men. You keep bottling it down, you're going to come out with the wrong behavior. So you've given Oscar the opportunity from the full extent of, you can do this and you can do that. He's got this full, scope of things that he can now choose from, as opposed to a narrow one, knowing that, you can only do this good stuff, but the anger down here, you can't express that. Well, that then is going to take over time. But if you're giving him that full scope, he's able to choose now. He can see the boundaries.
I think choice is what is the power. Because if you give people the choice, they've got the freedom of taking responsibility for their actions.
That's it.
I think I need to be on time for my date night. Otherwise, I will have very little power. Let's start recording.
It's recording. I'm recording all of this. I'm going to put an announcement in later on. Scott's suggestion was there's too much good content in these conversations. People who are listening to this last week, Jerome had some issues, couldn't get online and meet with us. So it was me, Kenny, and Scott, and we just talked. And we just talked as men. And we thought because I've already had the record button going from the beginning, and the end result was we thought there was so much value in there. And we started today to have a chat to see about where we're going to take this conversation. And we just came up with so much gold. So why stop it? Let's just keep the whole thing going as it is. And great suggestion, Scott. And we'll just add to what we've already been talking about. So I think we're going in the right direction.
One thing I'd like to add to that straight away is I gave a talk on diversity and inclusivity, and it was about men, how to include men, how can men be heard. To an extent, I think there was a subtext of how can men be tamed. And very quickly I said something about the misunderstanding that sometimes when a man is excited or enthusiastic or passionate, he might come across to other people as angry. So it's almost as if we have to suppress all of this good stuff for fear of what other people might think. And as soon as I said that, there was a message in chat that the moderator read out saying it was from a Black woman saying, same for us, because we cannot afford to be seen as angry Black women. So we can't be passionate. We have to be quiet. We have to be good. We have to be appropriate. And it kills our passion. It kills our spirit as well. So there's the force of joy and passion and a free spirit that's dampened. And what you said, Scott, is you got a chance to express this rather than suppress the whole thing and for the whole thing to be turned into bad and fester into something that might eat him away inside or be passed on to someone else, neither of which is healthy. But healthy expression, There needs to be space and the understanding of it. And another thing that was said in that talk specifically was the way that very often people, male and female, don't feel heard. And this, you know, there are jokes about this very often, that a man's wife, especially in the old days, would not just finish her sentence, but whatever he has to say will be listening to what she's thinking. And it may have not only nothing to do with what he said, but he might have changed, but no one's listening, because it's like who he was or who he should be or whatever it is. And it works both ways. But the power of listening, and maybe even reflective listening, are you saying blah, blah, blah? And then both parties know that we're on the same page and being heard. Are you angry? And I know that what my wife had issues with me, because when it was doing the admin or the business stuff of my business, I'd be straight, maybe not so playful and expressive. And for a while, she just thought I was angry. And I wasn't, I was just straight. And it's happened with other people I've worked with, is sometimes it's the straight head button, where it's about facts and, you know, not playfulness. And it's so important to know when someone's angry or just coming from a different place. And I wonder with, you know, there's the so-called toxic masculinity. And I wonder whether the toxic femininity, and it's got nothing to do with male and female, is the withdrawal, which a little boy might feel as abandonment. In fact, dirty great men can crumble at the withdrawal or the criticism of a woman. I know I can. That's what I'm avoiding later. But to know where to meet and to be honorable to the boundaries, to the agreements, or negotiate rather than pretend that it's not going to change.
And Kenny, to take up your point, and I know the point was brought up last discussion about boundaries. The boundaries shift so often, and often boundaries shift so quickly that the other person's or the public perception could misjudge you because of those shifting boundaries. And I also need to say that sometimes boundaries need to be tested, boundaries need to be changed for a progressive society and for positive change, so that a change in your space, your personal space, a change in your boundary could create positive benefits. And I think, Kenny, in your men speak groups, you would realize that sometimes you have to redraw and reconfigure boundaries so that your mind and body and soul could be properly aligned.
Otherwise, there's no space for change or growth or exploration or progress or even digress. Exactly.
Or regression.
I can see the cogs turning over there, Scott.
Yeah, I just can't help but wonder whether or not, and just through my experience, whether or not values and principles are the key to everything. Because I'm happy to explore my boundaries because I completely understand my values and principles. I stand within them consistently, and taking on tough situations is made so much easier because I can fall back on my values. Is in alignment with my values. If it's not, then I'm safe enough to let that go, and I don't have to sit with that in my head. And I think that's something that the men I admire most, you know, I've got 3 on the screen at the minute that I admire. The values are set here. You know, you hold yourself to your values. That's what makes people, for me, that's what makes a man attractive. You know, a man that stands in his truth, stands in his values. Boundaries are always going to be pushed. That's what they're there for. You know, that's where we're at. How much further can we go? Is it
Scott, let me ask you a question. Scott, as you're on that topic of values and principles, are you really trying to talk about morals and ethics? Are you substituting values and principles for morals and ethics? Or is that something separate in your logical system, in your mind? Do you see values, principles different from morals and ethics, or are you using it as a substitute? Because some people do that.
Yeah. So my values are simple. Trust, respect, love equals action. You know, I trust I'm only ever given a situation I can handle. Do I trust myself?
Right.
Am I trusted in this situation? Respect. Am I respecting myself, my family, and my community with this situation? Am I
Right.
coming from love or fear? If I'm coming from love, then I need to create an action because it's in complete alignment with my values. If I'm coming from fear, I need to understand why I don't trust myself. And if I don't, then I leave it alone.
Right.
But morally, I can be tested, but my values stay the same.
Right. Right.
Yeah, because I grow with my morals and my ethics because it depends on the situations, and I'll learn more. You know, like the more I learn, like today, listening to you speak about what was going on in America, I don't know a lot about that, so I won't speak on that.
Right.
Yeah, but because of maybe my morals of just wanting to understand the situation and respect you, I'll sit and listen and want to learn because it's really important.
Right.
Does that make sense?
I don't know what you think about that.
Yeah. I think men are amazing. I truly do. And the mere fact that we're even having this conversation these days is just brilliant.
Yeah.
Because we're learning, and it's the one thing that I continually sort of ask. And that's actually, believe it or not, many years ago, I contacted Kenny out of the blue. And I said, what does it mean to be the modern man? We need to have a summit on this, and we need to sit and we need to talk about this because I don't have a target. I don't know what it is. Help me find a target, because it's much easier when you can see something.
That's it.
And I think it's the actions that we need to see.
Yeah, and I think that's a key word, is actions. We've got a lot of talk. We're talking about, you know, Black Lives Matter, all lives matter, and all the rest of it. At the end of the day, I can see why that causes friction between different groups, because they're just words. But if all lives matter, all lives only matter when we all take action. And therefore that makes us equal at that time. And that's, since we're equal, that's what we're after, isn't it? Where we're all seen to be and actually treat each other with equality. But it's more than just saying it. Because I know that, you know, I speak to uncles and aunties in the Aboriginal community, and I, you know, mention, well, all lives matter. And they're going, but right now, Black Lives Matter. We need to be recognised, like you were saying before, Jerome, being able to express yourself. And it's important for them to do that, you know, to be heard, and so they're noticed. But it's also up to us at the same time. If all lives matter, then we treat everybody the same. And as you said, the action, not just the words. Just talking about it, really, it comes across as insulting. But if we're doing something and showing that we believe, you know, we're actually by our actions that all lives matter, then we are together. We are brothers and sisters. We're all connected.
So then you brought up a good point. Sorry to intervene, but you brought up a good point about action, and Kenny and Scott might agree with me, because sometimes we pay lip service. A lot of time, you know, we empathize, we sympathize maybe with the people in Afghanistan, or child soldiers in Africa, or refugees, and we sympathize with them, but we do not act. We would hear about abuses of thousands of boys by the Catholic Church, maybe in the Boy Scouts of America. But do we act? Do we take decisive action, or do we just talk about it? And I think that is the issue that I have with a lot of feminists and men's groups. We need to take action.
That's it. With no action, it's just words and it means nothing. As I said, that's really extremely insulting when somebody says, well, I believe, I want to support that group and everything else, but they don't. That's just playing lip service so they feel better themselves. It's not doing any good to anybody, especially not to the person who's saying it as well. You've got, as we say, everything comes down to the action. It's like knowledge. People say, well, knowledge is power. No, knowledge without action is not power at all. Power is when you apply it. Taking that knowledge and the experience, you gain experience from applying things, and you gain wisdom through the experience. So if we're going to be wise, we also need to be taking action to get to that point in the first place. We're not going to get there without action. And so if we say we support somebody, yeah, support them. But when we support them, do it in a constructive way that brings everybody else closer to them as well. Not segregating each other.
Otherwise, it could be said that it's colluding.
Yeah.
Condoning it, supporting it.
That's it. Inaction is an action of one form, but it's not the action that we need to be taking. We need to take action, but it needs to be positive. How do I help solve a problem? How do I stop whatever it is from repeating? And at the same time, doing no harm to others in the process. Because I know that when we started, a lot of groups they start for a reason, because they've, there might be abuse in one area. So we start a group and we get rid of that abuse, but then we find that some people will abuse that right. And now we've got to start another group to solve the abuse that the previous one has now created. And that's why #we together, when we're together, and we ain't going to solve problems when we're shoulder to shoulder, but shoulder to shoulder, just sitting there and talking is not enough. We have to be acting at the same time, taking action.
Yeah, and I think taking action is something that is so important. I had a beautiful conversation yesterday with a dad from school, just quickly, and we were talking about tennis, and we're talking about how I was just getting Oscar's racket restringed, and we're talking about how it's normally, if you've got two siblings, two brothers, the younger brother is generally better than the older brother, because the younger brother's been sitting there watching the older brother play tennis for years, and he's been watching how everything works, right? And it's just his natural ability when he gets on the court finally, he's actually already got it because he's been watching the action of his brother, who is his idol, And it's fascinating, because I can't remember who told me many years ago, and it was the reason why I wanted to work so much on myself, was be the man you want your son to be. Because if you work hard at that, and it's fascinating, because it doesn't take a lot of action to change things. You just have to take responsibility for yourself and your own actions. Other people will notice that, and other people will just pay attention and either drop off and grow, or you'll find your community, which is something we were talking about earlier, because it's to belong to something, and to find your place in life. That's for me has been one of the biggest keys for me, is to try and find the place where I can spend my time and want to spend time. But I've had to action myself and work on myself, and not take responsibility for anybody else. Take it for yourself as a man, and be the best version of you.
Well, you can't help anybody else, and if you're not the best version, because you're just robbing other people in that process. So you've got to be your best version. As I say, to look after other people, and that you've got to be selfish to be selfless. So take some time out, make sure you are the best version, because if our children are watching us, they're learning through our actions, not by what we're saying, but by what we're doing. And that's how they gauge themselves, and they create their own identity. So we want, and the proudest thing any father can have is to look at his son, especially when he's growing up, and look at him and go, he's a better man than me. It's the mark of a leader, is to raise other people up to do the work that you can do, and do it better than you. And and that's the thing that we want for our sons, not to be clones of us, but to be men in their own rights and be the best versions of themselves. And the only way that happens, we've got to be the best versions of ourselves so they can observe that and learn from that. They will, and they'll see our faults and everything else, which is good, because it means that they don't have to be perfect as they're growing up. So it takes pressure off them. At the same time, they can see where our weaknesses are and go, okay, I don't need to take that part of Dad. I can work on the other parts. And at the same time, we have other good men around us. That's why we have these conversations. We get other good men around because the other men have just as much impact on raising our children as we do, because they'll observe them as well. And so that's why we become a man and be the best version of a man that we possibly can be. And we attract other men like that around us. And that way our children, as they grow up, can take a measure of all those other men and create their own identity, which is unique from everybody else. And then the father can look at his son and go, wow, I've got a son here who's very much a man that I respect and love.
I love the point you said just then about seeing our faults, because I think that is the key to actually exponential growth. Like the airline industry put in the black boxes so they could learn from their mistakes. They could learn consistently. So the aviation industry has the independent body which looks after that. You very rarely hear of an airplane accident these days. That's very rare because of all the information. They constantly learn from their mistakes, learn from their mistakes. Whereas you look at the legal system, the medical system, they hide them. And I think if we can share more of our flaws, and like, I'm great at it. I muck up a lot of things a lot, especially when I come onto these things. But that's the true gift of growth, I think, accepting those.
Well, it also takes the pressure off us. We don't have to be perfect, because if you're trying to be a good father and you're trying to be perfect, you're not going to be the best version of yourself, because you're going to be so focused on trying to be perfect. Then you're going to expect that from your son as well. There's no chance for them to grow up in the best possible way. So we have to accept that, we're going to make mistakes, and that's fine. We just need to be the best people that we can possibly be. And our sons and our daughters as well will grow up and look at their parents and go, okay, I don't have to be perfect, but I can strive to be the best version of who I am. And they create their own identity by observing all the other people we have around us. And that's why I invite my sons to come and have conversations with other men so they can learn from those men. And my job was to make sure that the men I invited in had quality. And it's up to the boys then to realise from those other men the good parts and work out what they want to apply to their own personalities and characters.
And I'm sorry to talk a bit at the minute, but we want to go into the topic with like the boy crisis. And it's interesting because I look at my life and I didn't have a lot to do with my father. And then I moved in with another family who took me in, and John was a great role model. And then I look through my life and all the different role models I've had in my life, they're so important. And I think, we talk about incarceration. And what is it? Something like 97% of men incarcerated are father deprived.
That's it.
But the role models are so important, and you look at our role models are football stars that just smash themselves up, that run through pain and just continually push through those barriers where, it can't be good for the psyche of a man. And I'm sure you guys have got a bit more information about this than I have, but that constant battle, because that's the only place they're allowed to smash out their frustration, and they go out and just destroy each other, but they haven't processed any pain. Yeah, I'll leave that with you.
What were you thinking, Kenny?
Addiction. I was thinking about addiction. For role models like that, I wonder whether this personality, this killer instinct to be the best at the sport, where that leaves the status, and then once they make it, the few people I've known who've done well in sports, each and every one has had serious addiction issues. And it's not just to do with drugs, it's also to do with power and pushing. And it would be helpful if these people are known as people rather than superstars that do crazy things on pictures that people are supposed to be like. You know, I think everyone has a dark shadow and a gold shadow. So what's really going on? Some of these things that these people have been through, you know, it's a huge issue. Addiction and mental health issues during and after any fame, including sports people. That's where my mind went. There's a real cost to everything. There's opportunity cost, but success like that, the modern day heroes, it would be handy for people who dedicate their lives to following the footsteps of these sports heroes. Even same with any success, what it costs socially, integrity, family, time. So many people I know have dedicated their lives to crossing everything off the list. The money, the muscles, the wife, the kids, the house, the rental properties, whatever it is. And when they have it all, that's when they realize that they have everything, but they are nothing. There is no passion, there is no purpose. There's no personal power. These things own them. And maybe still they don't feel good enough to connect. But then sadly, the ones that I've known will pass that on to their kids because it's the best they know.
That's it.
Will send them to the same school that damaged them, or continue with the same family or community structure because it's all they have, or they don't know how to change it. And I think maybe this is where your work comes in, Jerome, because these are the things that need to be changed.
Yeah,
The boys need to be given a chance.
I couldn't agree with you more, Kenny. And of course, what Alan and Scott said. But Kenny, I mean, what you were saying there sounded like these ancient philosophers, you know, from Greece and Rome, in that you speak so much truth there that they're chasing after this power. They want to be a winner. They want that Olympic dream to have that gold medal. They want to be first. They want to break the record. And they keep on crossing things out the list. And when they do achieve that gold medal and they break that record, they try to uncross things on the list, but it's too late. They lose their wife, their children feel neglected, their friends, you know, feel that they're treated shabbily and alienated. So it is so sad that we cannot do anything really, but we could try. And I will give you a good example. About 5 years ago, I spoke with some feminists. You need to know what the feminists think. And the feminists, some of them were telling me they were against the Miss Universe competitions and the Miss World competitions because it portrays the woman in a certain stereotype, a glamorous way and slim and, you know, a lot of plastic surgery. But the feminists never made proper inroads, and the Miss Universe competition continue being beamed worldwide. Countries keep on sending up contestants. And while you were talking, Kenny, it made me realize that what we are up against, not just the four of us, but what other like-minded men are up against is something mammoth. And I use the word mammoth in its form. It is so difficult to change the mindset of the world where you talk about sports stars and sporting heroes, but we have so much a mindset that is entrenched, that is what I would call old school, outdated. And that is the problem we have right now.
And there's money in it. There's money in
Lots of
people
money.
feeling less
Lots of
than.
money.
And these days, you know, it's so incredibly in so many people's faces, for example, on Instagram, which is something I've barely looked at. But if you look like this and you have this and blah, 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 then maybe one day you will be good enough to connect with. Meanwhile, we're connecting now. And I'm not saying that none of you were pretty. But, you know, now is the time. Not once you have everything or you take the photos with the right people, or no, now is the time. There's money in you're not good enough. And this is how to be good enough. Huge industry.
I've noticed something too. I've noticed that, sorry to interrupt you, Kenny. I've noticed something that a lot of men are reluctant to read. A lot of boys too. They're reluctant to read. Now they would read WhatsApp and emails, Instagram, but they're reluctant to read. And Kenny, I was wondering if you noticed that with the sale of your books, or Alan and Scott, if you noticed that, Scott, maybe with your son, would he take up a novel? Would he take up a book and read, or is he more inclined to watch television or movie? Men have, I've noticed in the Caribbean, a reluctance to read.
Yeah.
Very much so. You know, like one of the most beautiful things that has happened to me lately is during one of the conversations. We've got a guy who's, you know, he's 26 years old, never read a book. And he read a page of a book. It took 20 minutes. And we sat there while he struggled through this page, like tears pouring down my face. What a gift. He read that book. The book's called Modoc, if you ever look at it. It's about an elephant. It's beautiful. He's given me the book back. So can you please sign this for me? Because it's the first book I've ever read. There is a reluctancy for men to be able to read. I don't make enough time for reading. Oscar pushes back on reading. You know, and I listen to a lot of Audible, and I love it. Is that the key to men? If we can encourage to read, encourage to learn. You're either green and growing, or you're ripe and rotting. And when you're in a growing mindset, a lot of things work a lot better.
I know when you read, you actually, you know, really slow down. Even audio books, well, they're a little bit faster. You can be doing something else. You're not fully concentrating. And I think reading is an art form. I was one of those kids when I went through school. There was only one book that I ever read at school. We had to for English. It was Firebrand. It was about a horse. And that was the only, I can say that I never read any books at all going through, even through the year 10 at high school. And it was only in your number of years later, I got interested in fitness, and I picked up a book on the Nautilus exercises. I read that from cover to cover, and then picked up the manual on, or the book on the nutrition that went with it. And I devoured those. Now, if you have a look in my downstairs where I've got all my books and everything else, it was wall to wall. At one stage, I had a wall that was full length from the ground to the ceiling, and I had to, I got rid of most of those books, and I refilled it again. And yeah, but it's when you pick up a book and you slow down, you read it, your whole rate of what your mind slows down. The problem, I think, I know I won't say with men, but what was wrong with me was always going 100 miles an hour. So much to be done all the time. And then a movie, yeah, I could see the whole novel in a movie, which only took what 2-3 hours or whatever it might be. If you're watching Lord of the Rings or something like that, 3 hours, Star Wars. But the books themselves, how long do they take to read on the same thing? A lot longer. So we're consuming to get things in, because we're always rushing, or I was always rushing to get things done. My calendar's always full. Take time out and read. Well, that changes the rate of the way I'm, that I'm thinking. It slows the heart rate down, helps me relax. And I think a lot of men just don't take the time out to do it.
It's very quick fixes these days. I was going to say the same as you. Reading a book is being with the story, feeling the perspectives, fantasizing, where what I know of, especially with younger people, is podcasts, instant company, YouTube's instant information or distraction, and it's all fix, very quick. There is no being with, and that is such a huge loss of the magic of life, the creativity, the imagination, the possibilities. Being with. And I'd say that's one of the main differences for me between a boy and a man, is a man comes from being and can extend in doing, where a boy does very little being if it's all doing, keeping up with, competing, surviving, panic.
Yeah, and that's why, I love that you brought that up, because people are saying, oh, but when you get to a certain age, you go from childhood into either manhood or womanhood, depending on your gender. At the end of the day, I know a lot of men who are probably in their 60s, 70s, 80s, go to the grave in their 90s, and well, they never made it to being a man. They're still out there just doing and trying to be the man. And I think anyone who's trying to be the man is not going to succeed at being a man. And what I want to be is a man. So, it's a matter of, as you said, being, not just doing. And so once we start realizing that, I think for a lot of males out there, older males, they can start looking at, well, have I really created the life that I want to create? Have I become a man? Have I become the man that I would like to be? I think that's one, whether it be a great place for all of us to individually look at and strive towards. Because, well, Scott, as you said, with the relationship that you have with Oscar, is so powerful and everything else. And that's because you've taken that position of being there for him and being that example for him to aspire to.
Yeah, and thank you. And I take being a dad very seriously. I take it as the greatest opportunity that I've had in my life thus far. But I also want to thank you all for just having a conversation about reading. I didn't read my first book until I was in my 30s. And I'm just sitting here playing through things. And Marcella was very adamant about Oscar reading. She did all this book stuff. Marcella was right on him. She did an amazing job of that. And I need to take responsibility for that, because I think I don't know a lot of men that read a lot. I wonder whether or not that's okay. Because I often say, with guys, when stuff's going, I always say, because when people have got stuff going on, sit down and write it down. The brain can't go as fast as the pen. You always slow down when you write.
That's it.
So I want to say thank you, everybody, for my gift in this, because it's all about yeah. But I'm going to pick up a book a bit more often just so I can show him.
I want to bring up a point, and it would be interesting to hear what you all have to say. And it's in helping define a man. I had a discussion a while ago with a woman, and I was asking her if she feels that men are more forgiving than women. And she immediately told me, without hesitation, that she feels that women are more open and more willing to forgive. They are more willing to embrace a stranger, and they are willing to move on. And I thought, it would be interesting to hear what you all have to say, because forgiveness is part of manhood, moving on, accepting the fault of others, as Alan talked about imperfections. It's all part of understanding and forgiving. So I was wondering what you all understand, is that part of manhood, trying to mend the broken bridges? Kenny, what do you think?
This is so important because my mind went straight into it depends on the stakes. So if it's taking a risk with someone whose behavior has been demonstrated, and let's say if I had kids or my wife or, you know, anyone was in a vulnerable situation, then probably not. Because instinctively as a man, I feel maybe an old-fashioned man, one of the things I'm programmed to do that I like to do is provide and protect. And if that means I'll drag my heels for giving, and as part of my protection, then I will. If I was on my own and there weren't other people involved, then I might take that risk a lot more flippantly. So I think it depends on the situation. And maybe it also depends on the culture. If I was, I don't know, in a situation, I learned a lot with the whole Black Lives Matter thing, because I didn't realize in some parts of America how bad it is. And my father never had to sit me down and say, if you're stopped in the street, this is how you behave so they don't harm you or lock you up or shoot you, etc., etc. So if something happened, because he didn't need to, I'm not in that danger. And it's been a huge thing to see how normal that is in so many families, Black families in America and God knows where else. That if there was the slightest hint of danger of someone's kids or something, then absolutely not. It's not about forgiving. This could be life or death. So maybe I'm just getting very extreme and heavy here. And I'd love to say men and women can both forgive the same, and it's got nothing to do with that. This is about danger. This is about protection. This could be about life or death. And maybe the man is the cold one sometimes, and lays down the law and is overcautious and can be bad, or whoever the masculine aspect is in the relationship. And the feminine aspect can make things nice and do good PR, knowing that the safety is in place and it's interchangeable, which is male or female. You know, my wife and I can play good cop, bad cop, depending on who we're relating to, you know, who will get on with who and who is scary with who and how will we do this, because boundaries need to be held and the job needs to be done safely and efficiently. So yeah, I find it difficult for this to be man or woman. I think it's a lot deeper than that. It's a lot more important than that. And sometimes it's about the female aspect, keeping things safe because of being nice and harmless rather than fierce with strong boundaries. So I think I got off on one there. So,
but I think that's a really valid point, because you know, when we have conversation, we go, a men this and a women that. We're generalizing too much, and we're thinking of a situation. And really, as you said, Kenny, it depends on the situation. It depends on what's at stake, who's involved. And there are no two situations at any time in this, you know, in history that have been identical. So, you know, the ability to forgive is going to come down to our own makeup as ourselves, you know, as far as what we've been through and what we're willing to forgive. So I know some people will never forgive other people, and you know, as I say, you know, it's like taking poison and hoping the other person will die, and it doesn't happen, and all you're doing is damaging yourself. But you know, in that situation, yes, forgive the other person because it's allowing you to let go and look after yourself. Got nothing to do with the other person. They'll never know. It doesn't change their life at all. It changes yours. But in the situation, if there's danger, etc., completely different. You're not going to go and forgive somebody. You know, it's a matter of making sure the place stays safe. When that person changes, you may then reevaluate that. If they're still the same person doing what they've always done, you're not going to forgive them. And so it is very much a situation type thing. And husband and wife looking at the same situation, well, they're different makeups and everything else. They're both going to value things differently. So in some situations, one will forgive, and at other times, the other one will forgive. I think to focus on having the ability in oneself to be able to forgive is probably the most important thing, than expecting other people to forgive because we don't know their story.
I'm absolutely stoked that, Jerome, you've posed this question, and I'm absolutely stoked, Kenny, that you've answered it first. This could have very easily been a conversation, which it would be in most circles. Yeah, no, it's the women are more. No, it's the men. But because of our experience in life, we've sat down and broke down the situation rather than put the blame. Okay, what is the situation? Let's seek further truth before we actually enter the conversation. For me, this is a great example of understanding, because there's zero blame. It comes back to the situation. So I just really enjoyed listening to that. Thank you.
I think that there's probably a lot more that we can talk about. I think that after the conversation that we had when we first did our panel discussion on International Men's Day, and then the other weekend when the three of us got together and Jerome couldn't make it, and now Joan's with us today. I'm enjoying these conversations with you three men so much. We just have to turn this into a series, I think. Just people getting together and having chats. And talking about forgiveness, I really don't want to get to a point where the three of us, Jerome, Scott, and myself, have to get forgiven because your wife is going, date night, Penny, date night.
I've got 6 good minutes still. 6 good minutes. And I know I've heard it said that irrespective of how long people go to therapy, it could be a few sessions, it could be a few decades. It's the last bit of the last session that really counts.
Well, because I'm a very greedy person, if you've got the 6 minutes to go or 5 minutes to go now, because I'm a very greedy person, I'm going to shut up and let you three guys keep talking. I want to absorb.
You know, I've got a cheeky question for you, Jerome. Yeah. Have you got in trouble with this whole International Men's Day? Has there been a lot of backlash with, every day's International Men's Day? Who do you think you are? You're anti-women and things like that. Because there must be a lot of very, very clever people. I feel that I've been shot at by multi-syllabled machine guns because people far cleverer than me have shot all sorts of things.
Yeah. To answer your question, which people often are reluctant to ask me in case they embarrass me, but I have been getting friction from women's groups, from governments. But what hurts me the most is when men refuse to understand International Men's Day and to know that I am trying to help the society and trying to move men one level forward, into a new phase, to see life in a different perspective. And I get this criticism. They are cynical, they are sarcastic, the men. And I don't know if it's racism. I don't know if it's because I'm from the Caribbean and they expect to come from a developed country. But there is this feeling that International Men's Day, it's not good enough. That's the feeling that I get sometimes when I contact a men's group, that why are you having this day? We are already doing our own, our own little work. And they do as if I am trying to impose a new idea or a new religion. They're trying to do as if I'm trying to shove something down your throat. So that hurts me the most.
So it's almost competitive.
That's what they feel, it's a competition. And I want to tell you all something that you might know. Some men take money from their own pockets, personal expenses, and they have events for World Day of the Boy Child, for Men's Day. And I think this really touches my heart. It touches my soul to see that I have given them this idea and they have run with it and they have developed it. They have done their own marketing with it. And they would say, you know, Jerome, I'm going to put forward part of my income in November, part of my expenses to do this. And I think, Kenny, I want to salute you. I think you had the whole month a few years ago, and I was in contact with one of the city officials too. So, and I think Alan too also promoted regularly on Campfire last year. So it's the tension amongst the men that hurts me the most. Some of you all might know that York University in England wanted to cancel Men's Wednesday a few years ago and somebody committed suicide, right? So it gets as intense as that. A university, which is supposed to be an institution of higher learning, canceled the International Men's Day observance and a man commits suicide. Just what I was trying to prevent occurred. So I don't know if that answers your question, Kenny.
And it brings up something that Alan says. I think you've got the hashtag we together. And I feel that I need to know me. And then there is a me to bring together. Rather than we are all together, we are all one. And I don't know which bit I am or which bit you are, but I know I'm saying the right thing. And now everyone has to like me. First, I need to exist.
I think that's a key point. It's a key point that is just saying that, yeah, we might all be in this together, but you know, what part do we play? We've got to know ourselves first. As you said, once we know that, we know what we're bringing to the table, and then we know what to look for in other people. Can't find it in ourselves first. We know, look at ourselves and we can't see what we are, then how can we gauge anybody else? And I think that's why a lot of groups where, you know, Jerome, you've had flack from them, there's been that ego side of thing. I'd say they're probably, I'll probably get into trouble for this, but they're probably more the men who are trying to be the man, even though they're running a men's group, than trying to be a man. As I said before, you know, as much as I possibly can, and that's with the support of all the people like yourselves who have been coming in. I'm getting out of the driver's seat of the Campfire Project and sitting in the passenger seat. I'm letting other people drive it, because, and then advertising and sharing all the other groups out there and bringing attention to them as well, because that way then we are in it together. You know, unless I'm acting together and performing that way, you know, I'm being a hypocrite otherwise.
I love the way that International Women's Day, 8th of March, is so celebrated. And surely it should be, it can be the same with men. What is the difference? We're celebrating the feminine and women. We're celebrating the masculine and men. And as you just said, Alan, anyone who's competing there, that's boy behavior. That's got nothing to do with men.
That's it. See, it's the way I look at it is the, you know, if we, this is why I wanted the group here and why I brought women in as well. When men become better versions of themselves, you know, the recipients of that are the women, their partners, their children, their community. We all, and fellow men, we all become together in that way. It's not a competition. You know, celebrate International Women's Day. We should celebrate International Men's Day as much, knowing that by the more that we can help men achieve what we're trying to achieve, the women are the ones who will notice the difference probably quicker than we will. While we're still working out whether we're there or not, the women are experiencing it. They know whether we're achieving or not. This is why we should be coming together and sharing these things. You know, celebrate International Women's Day just as much as we want, you know, share International Men's Day, and vice versa.
It would be beautiful if men stood up and celebrated International Women's Day.
Yeah, we do. Every year we celebrate the men and the women actively, and it's wonderful.
I'm going to make a point. I haven't done
the men's groups and the women's groups. We have special groups. We honour ourselves and each other. It would be weird not to.
Yeah.
And any minute now, I should go and find out how I'm doing. feedback. There's always room for feedback.
Yeah. Well, I've been attentively watching your expressions as the time's been going on. So,
what, fear in my eyes? Not at all. My wife is so supportive of what I'm doing tonight with you guys. And my family adore you, Jerome. It's magnificent the way they speak specific, because they've seen you with me a few times. And it's just great. And the work, you know, the number of times that the Campfire Project in YouTube are mentioned, and the stuff that we talk about with my friends, it's just, I love that I'm supported in this, and that what we're talking about is working together to create better, rather than who do we fight against and who is the enemy. It's not that way. So in the name of love, I will leave you.
Thank you, Kenny.
Thank you. Well, thanks, guys. And, you know, as I say, I just can't get enough of these conversations. So, you know, have to do more of them. But thanks all for being here today, and to everybody else who's been watching in. Thank you for being at the Campfire Project, and we'll see you on the next show. Bye for now.
I love our different time zones as well. totally different time zones. It's hilarious.
Thumbs up now. I'm ready to start my day. Good night, Kenny.
Exactly. It's pitch black.
So, Jerome's living in the past, though.
Friday still. On Friday still. Yeah.
Hey, Saturday morning here, guys. From Scott and I, welcome to the future. Okay, with that, I will see you guys later on. Bye for now.
Cool.
Well, take care.
See you soon.
Okay, then.
Bye.
Bye-bye.